Welcome to the Business Mechanics Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmon, co-founder of Results-Driven Leadership. I got a great show for you today. It's one that was prompted by a couple incidences over the past couple weeks that it's just funny how these things come in groups. But it reminded me and prompted me to put today's show together to talk about a topic that every leader who is not performing at the level they feel like they should be, that is coming up a little bit short, or maybe way short. It's probably one of the number one topics from a leadership standpoint that you need to embrace, regardless of your skill level. It's a rule of thumb. And what is it? It's what you tolerate, not what you preach. It's all about setting expectations and owning the outcome. It's about responsibility. I've done several other podcasts on this in the past. It's so easy as a manager, as a leader, as an emerging leader, to blame others. It's our natural tendency as a human being. As soon as something goes wrong, we start looking for somebody to blame. But unfortunately, if you really want to be a great leader, you need to accept the fact that almost everything that goes wrong is somehow your fault, if not directly your fault. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that. Hard to swallow, but it's easily fixed if you're willing to embrace some of the tactics and mindsets that I'm going to talk about in today's show. And it starts with setting the right expectations. We've all heard the saying, actions speak louder than words. And in the realm of leadership, this couldn't be truer. While setting expectations is crucial, what truly matters is what you tolerate in the path or the outcome to those expectations. If substandard performance is accepted and no one, including yourself, is held accountable, that poor performance becomes the new standard. No news is good news. If nobody's saying I'm doing it wrong, it must be all right. That is human nature. So poor performance becomes the standard, regardless of what you've said, what you preached, or what you've written. You cannot legislate standards of performance. It's about accountability. And it's about you accepting poor performance. Let's talk about the downward spiral of accepting poor performance. Poor performance is 100% led by poor behaviors, either from training, hiring the wrong person, not managing to expectations, not giving regular reviews, feedback sessions. And it's these bad behaviors that create the outcomes of missed deadlines, poor productivity numbers, bad customer service, poor sales, et cetera, et cetera. And it's these behaviors in any organization or within a team that sets a very dangerous precedent. When subpar efforts are tolerated or overlooked, we just live with them, it sends a message. And what is that message? Mediocrity is okay. And over time, this changes your culture. Almost every employer, almost every manager I know wants to have a great, productive culture. You've got to look at yourself and understand how much you're accepting of each individual person's performance on your team. Because over time, this can lead to a culture where standards are consistently lowered and the bar for excellence is diminished. And let me tell you too, the more these standards of excellence are diminished, it's harder and harder to hire good people. And it's really hard to hang on to good people when you do hire them. As standards decline, there's a ripple effect. And very often, those who once aim for excellence or have the ability, the know-how to perform at a very high level, they no longer see the value in putting it in, because why should I bust my butt? Nobody else around here is. And the boss accepts it. And every minute as a leader, you're accepting that poor performance. Not only are you ruining your culture, but you're eroding trust and you're eroding respect for your team to you. Because they're all, the good ones are saying, when are they going to deal with this? Do they not see what I see? Why do they get away with this? This all leads to a decline in overall quality and output. It's unfortunate that human nature works that way. It is the rarest, maybe 1% of the population that'll say, whoa, I need to really help old Vaughn out. Everybody else around here is a lazy ass. No, most people say, hey, I'm just going to let him fall into it. He's the one that's accepting this. So I'm a little tough on you today, but you've got to think about this, because furthermore, when you do not address this poor performance, not only does it demoralize your high achievers and those who are dedicated within your group, the ones that take pride and strive to deliver their best, those are the ones that go away. You lose your best ones first, because they have standards. They want to work in an organization that has those standards, and mediocrity and poor performance is not their standard. The repercussions are really bad for you. It leads to a lot of frustration and disillusionment. And if I can bet you 100% of the time, when a manager discusses with me why there's a bunch of gossiping going on, about people just gossip all the time. They're talking behind my back. They're gossiping. All these things are going on. This is the reason. It's this whole ripple effect. You've been accepting poor performance. They're frustrated by it. It's rippling over to your good performers. It's rippling to how they view you as a leader, the trust they have in you, and it makes your job very difficult, because they're going to begin to question the value of how hard they should work, how dedicated they should be, because there are no tangible benefits to excelling. And you don't mean to do that. You're just trying to be a nice person. You're often trying to avoid confrontation. The avoidance of difficult conversations lead to this very situation, and it's unintentional on your part. And lastly, this acceptance of poor performance, poor behaviors will absolutely have implications to your long-term growth and success, not only in your company, you're holding your company back, but you're holding your career back. Absolutely are. You'll keep lagging, and the cumulative effort of accepting poor performance has really profound consequences. Not just impacting today, the present, but the future as well. So that's a pretty bleak picture I'm painting there. But why does this happen? Why do some teams consistently underperform? Let's talk about the role of leadership in performance, because the root of subpar performance is traced right back to you, as I mentioned earlier. It's not necessarily about the team's lack of skills or motivation, but it's the leader's lack of skills. If you fail to clarify and hold people accountable to the importance of these standards in achieving success, you're going to get really bad performance. Leaders should adopt a mentoring mentality. That's where this is all going to, and I'm going to give you some examples. You need to mentor your people. You can do it one-on-one, you can do it in a group, but you have to let them know where they stand. More importantly, you have to help them get to the next level. You got to where you are because you were really good at something. You were the best at what you did. You aren't equipped most of the time to handle these sort of situations as a leader. You just have not been taught. So it's not necessarily your fault, but it's absolutely your responsibility to learn and get better. So you need to start making some changes. Let's talk about the power of accountability. Quick story. During a coaching contract that I had with a tech startup, I observed a really fascinating dynamic. The tech development team, the development team, had missed several deadlines, and this led to a lot of tension with the sales team. It was really screwing up their ability to sell this software and for customer retention. And the CEO, being the smart guy that he is, recognized it after some discussions. And then he jumped in and he intervened. Not with punitive measures, which is what most people want to do instinctually. They want to command and control. No, this CEO stepped back, looked in the mirror, said, what am I doing wrong? And so what he did, he says, you know what? I need to get my team to collaborate. They're all working as silos. And so he introduced and began having weekly review meetings where all parties were involved. And in these sessions, each team member from sales, tech support, etc., they all shared their progress and they shared their challenges, because sometimes sales were creating challenges too for the development team. And they talked to each other. They sought help from each other. And this simple act of collaborative accountability and problem solving, along with a very transparent communication style, transformed this team's dynamics. It was amazing. It went from a siloed they problem to a aligned we problem. And now we are going to work together to fix it. They went from being a group of individuals to a very cohesive unit. And when it got fixed fast, they began supporting each other and holding each other accountable. Pretty amazing to watch. And let's talk about the essence of leadership. I keep wanting to say the CEO's name, but I'm going to keep it private, because this is what he did. He took action over words. He took a team approach to it, took ownership of it, rather than making it punitive and getting mad about it. Leadership is also a multifaceted role. In that CEO's case, it encompassed his vision. It took his vision, he had to turn it into strategy, and he had to have the ability to inspire. And that's not raw cheerleading. What he did with just this meeting approach was inspiring. The fact that he was not blaming anyone was inspiring. The fact that he came up with a solution, a team solution to this, was inspiring. The core of leadership is about setting standards and ensuring they're met. And back to it's what you tolerate, not what you preach, captures the essence of that succinctly. A leader can articulate the most inspiring vision, but if they tolerate subpar performance or even unethical behavior, their words are meaningless, very hollow. The real measure of a leader is not in their speeches, but in their standards. And they uphold and demand and hold people accountable to the proper behaviors, the ones they expect. And to be effective as a leader, you must internalize the principle, and it begins with self-awareness. and recognizing the gap between what is said and what is done, and recognizing your role in it. You must be vigilant in ensuring that actions align with words, but not in a mean manner. There's more than one way to get this done. It is not command and control. But you do have to hold your team members accountable. It's amazing how many managers avoid accountability for fear of confrontation. And that avoidance creates more confrontation, not only between them and their direct reports, but between their direct reports between each other. It's very counterproductive. But if you are following my guidance on monthly performance feedback, constructive feedback, and you do it every month for 20, 30 minutes, you get a pattern. Everybody knows where they stand, and you have a real shot at improving people's behaviors when you talk about what behaviors need to be improved. If you ignore it and you keep it silent, and it's only in your head, it's never going to fix itself. You can't just talk about excellence. You have to give them the tools and the direction and the guidance to excellence. You have to set the expectations and demand those expectations. And if you've unwittingly hired somebody that doesn't have it within them to deliver, you must remove them from your team. It's the best thing you can do for the whole of the team, because it's the whole team that's being affected poorly, badly, by this person's bad performance. And you have to set very clear expectations. Provide this feedback. And this feedback needs to be open feedback. It really is a dialogue. And I've got a great course on how to create this dialogue, along with all the questions you need to ask. It's a coaching approach to management. You can all learn from this. It's crucial to create this culture. Now, as a leader, you've got to invest in your own development. And I don't care how you do it, but invest. Take what I'm speaking on today and go find the resources to get better at it, to understand it. You've got to work on your skills and knowledge to help them meet their standards. Let me tell you another quick story that I'm going to name names on this one. Maya. Maya is the manager of a manufacturing company I work with. And Maya, when I first came into the organization, she was very vibrant, bright. She came across as very personable, but she had a very poor performing team. But she loved to give motivational speeches. She had all these great motivational quotes all over the place. And she was a walking, talking expert on motivation, grand visions. But her team was often behind on projects. Mistakes were frequent. Missing goals was a standard. And they kept, unfortunately, in this company, I correct them on this, they kept lowering the standards because it wasn't Maya's fault. And all the time it was Maya's fault. They just did not see it, nor did Maya. So after some coaching with me, we helped her recognize the disconnect between her words and her team's performance, because she was all positive and raw, but she wasn't dealing with the underperformance in a way that was ever going to fix it. So we discussed some alternate methods where she could address and change this team's shortcomings, which were her shortcomings. She decided to change her approach, and she began holding weekly review sessions, not monthly, weekly, discussing successes and areas of improvement. And she put on the hat of a mentor. She introduced this mentorship program. And if she wasn't the right person to mentor somebody that needed help, she found somebody else on the team who would mentor this person, especially with the new ones. And over time, and it does take some time and not a lot of time, you slowly watch the team's performance reverse. In fact, over about 90 days, it improved dramatically. So what Maya learned and what she improved on was just not tolerating substandard performance, but instead of being encouraging about it, she actually gave people a way to fix it. She provided the necessary support. So she demanded it, but she also gave them the way to do it. And she dramatically transformed this team. Here's another point you have to embrace and understand. There are no bad teams, but there are very ineffective leaders. When you have a bad team, you're going to have an ineffective leader. It's a powerful testament to the impact you have on your team, its performance, its morale. But labeling somebody as a bad leader, it's a gross oversimplification, because more often than not, this leader gets up every morning, this may include you, and you want to go do the best job you can possibly do. You want to succeed. You don't get up in the morning and want to go in and do a mediocre job. You want to be good, if not great, at what you do. But why can't you? And it goes back to the thing I say often. You don't know what you don't know. So they use what they do know, and they fall into the trap of human behavior, and they remove themselves from the blame. They want to blame others, and they do. And this is just missing the essential knowledge, skills, tools that you need, that are required to guide a team effectively. This gap, your gap in leadership abilities, isn't a reflection of you or your character or your intentions, but rather it's an indication of areas where you need to further develop yourself and get the support. But first, you must recognize these gaps and then start taking some steps towards learning more about it. And listen, I do this. I sell training courses on this. I've got a great team of coaches I work with that can help you with this, but there's a lot of people that offer this. There's online support. Sometimes there's free support. But the cost of all of it is going to be your willingness to make some changes. You must find a commitment to improvement with yourself. Find the resources to give you the knowledge, skills, and tools you need to get the strategies, the insights, so that you can lead more effectively, become courageous, become confident, but go get the training and start down your journey of self-improvement. The payoff is astronomical. And go from instead of viewing yourself as being okay or frustrated, sometimes even a failure, you need to take that and say, oh, that's just a learning opportunity. That's just something that I need to learn more about. You're listening to this podcast because you're trying to learn something, but you're not going to learn it in the half hour to 45 minutes that this podcast is going to last. This is an ongoing journey that takes weeks and months to get really proficient at. You must have a trusted advisor in some way, a coach, a training program, super beneficial to you. So please go work on yourself. So let me tell you another quick story here. I'm going to tell you Alex's story. This was a real turnaround. I mentioned several times this human nature to want to blame somebody. You can only blame yourself. And Alex was a manager at a really rapidly growing e-commerce startup. He'd recently been promoted from within, and his team was really struggling. Again, with project delays, missed targets, which is rippling down the stream and holding the company back. A lot of frustration on the team. Their morale was low, gossiping about their discontent in the background. Alex wanted to blame his team, but he took over from a team his predecessor had a notorious reputation for pointing fingers, often publicly chastising team members for mistakes. So this led to a real culture of mistrust, fear. He was managing by fear. So Alex took over this team. I worked with Alex. I gave him some guidance how to turn this around. The first thing he did, he started a weekly team meeting, which was it was a major project update. Right after the team had missed another big deadline, the room was thick with tension, and I sat in to coach Alex through this. And they were sitting there because they'd missed this target again, waiting for their ears to get cleaned out. But Alex surprised everybody. Instead of looking for a scapegoat, which was what he wanted to do, but I helped redirect his thoughts on this. Alex said, listen, y'all, this is on me. I'm the leader, and I take responsibility for our team's performance. Now, let's discuss how we can improve this and make sure it doesn't happen again. Wow, I got to tell you, he woke some people up. He said, what? And over the next few weeks, he walked the talk. And he introduced a series of changes, focused on when things went wrong, what did we learn from it? How do we solve it? What's the root cause? How do we make sure it doesn't happen again? In a very collaborative, upbeat way. He had a lot of brainstorming sessions. He had everybody get involved. Very open communication. He listened to all voices and opinions and experiences. And there were setbacks. It wasn't perfect. But when there were setbacks, Alex would step in. He'd take responsibility for it. He'd blame himself because he knew he would only win as a team. But we also needed to learn as a team. And when the team was underperforming, Alex owned it. I got to tell you, over time, the transformation was pretty remarkable because his team began to respect and trust Alex, not out of fear, but out of genuine respect. And lo and behold, the team started taking more initiative. They began solving problems amongst themselves without the need of Alex. Project delays became a thing of the past. And by the end of the year, this was a few months, this struggling team was awarded within this organization Team of the Year because they were kicking butt. Alex celebrated success. He recognized every team member when they achieved something, even if it was just doing their job. But most importantly, Alex owned their mistakes, and he focused on solutions, not blame. I'm going to tell you my own story. This was early in my career, early days in corporate America. I had the privilege of working under two managers, and I'm going to call them, these are made up names, John and Sarah. Back-to-back years, consecutive years. John, who was a very soft-spoken individual who always emphasized the importance of quality work. Talked about it all the time. However, when deadlines approached and his team delivered subpar performance, John would just accept it. It's okay. We'll do better next time. There was no follow-up. There was no strategy or discussion on how to do better next time. He just accepted it. no discussions. Didn't talk about what went wrong, no strategies for improvement. The next year in comes Sarah. What a different approach. Like John, Sarah emphasized quality, but when the team didn't meet the expected standards, she'd get us all together, have a meeting, not to point fingers, but help us understand the gaps, to help provide feedback and guidance to us, strategize for the future. How are we going to do this better tomorrow? Can't change the past, but I can change what I do next. And under Sarah's guidance, God, I learned so much from her. Me as a team member and we as a team knew that substandard performance was not about missing a target, but about our own personal growth and our team's growth and our willingness to learn and to be focused on continuous improvement. She really got under us and sparked that in us. It was very inspiring. And to me, these two examples of John and Sarah just underscore the profound impact of what truly effective leadership is. It's not about blaming, but understanding the role of you as a leader in guiding, mentoring, and setting the right expectations and not tolerating substandard performance. Find a way to improve it. It's not about what you preach, but what you tolerate. So as we close this thing down today, set high standards, mentor your team, and watch them rise to the occasion. Your role as a manager or a leader is not just a title, it's a responsibility. And that responsibility is to guide your team towards excellence. It's not about lofty speeches or grand visions. It's about day-to-day actions and problem solving and your tolerance only of good behavior and outcomes. It's about understanding that every team member is unique. It's not one size fits all, and each individual has their strengths and their weaknesses. And you need to leverage their strengths and overlook or put them in a position where their weaknesses don't play a major role. Make sure they're in the right role. Set very clear expectations, but hold people accountable with regular feedback sessions. That's fire prevention. And please adopt a mentoring approach. Leaders can create teams that not only meet, but exceed expectations. And in the end, remember this. People don't follow titles, they follow character. It's not about what you say, but what you do and what you tolerate. And as I often say, leadership is a journey that requires patience, understanding, and a relentless pursuit of your own excellence.